Hi, I'm Melissa Davis, and welcome to Hello Prime Life, where midlife isn't a crisis, it's your comeback. I want to set a scene for you. It's a random Tuesday evening. Your day was fine. Nothing went catastrophically wrong. The house is quiet, dinner is finished, the kids or the dogs or the partner are settled, and you're standing in your own kitchen holding a cup of tea, or maybe a glass of wine. You look around, you look at the countertops you picked out, the warm pendant light overhead, the garden outside the window. Then you look at the bigger picture, the life you built, the career you sacrificed for, the relationships you've nurtured. From the outside, by every standard that counts, it's a good life. It's the exact life a 25-year-old version of you would have given her right arm for. And yet, as you stand there in the soft light of your own kitchen, you feel nothing. Not disappointment, not anger. You're not sobbing into a tea towel. You're just meh, indifferent, completely flat. Now, if you were in the middle of a massive life crisis, or suffocating under a toxic boss, or drowning in the mental load, that flatness would make sense. But there's no obvious villain here. There's no fire to put out. And that is precisely when the second hit lands. The guilt. Because almost immediately after you realise how uninspired you feel, your inner critic steps up to the mic and says, "Who do you think you are? You have a good house, you've got your health, you have people who love you. People would kill for this life. How dare you stand here and feel uninspired?" So now you're dealing with a double hit. You feel flat, and then you feel deeply ashamed for feeling that way. Ugh. You start performing the I'm fine mask, not just for the world, but for yourself, hoping that if you say, "I'm just tired," enough times, the sparkle will magically come back. I remember having my own version of this a few years ago. I was sitting on my back patio, a patio I'd literally drawn on a napkin years earlier, wishing I could own a home with an outdoor area like that. The sun was hitting the garden just right. The birds were doing their thing, and I remember looking at this gorgeous scene and feeling like I was watching it through a dusty window pane. I wasn't in the room of my own life. I was viewing it from 3 feet away. And then came that familiar, ugly wave of guilt. You got what you asked for, Melissa. Why aren't you enjoying it? If you've ever caught yourself standing in your own life feeling completely disconnected from your own good fortune, I want you to take a deep breath and lower your shoulders. You're not unappreciative or flawed. You've just hit an invisible biological wall that almost no one talks about. What you're experiencing has a name, a scientific explanation, and a very specific fix. That's what we're dismantling today. To understand why the good stuff goes flat, we have to make a very clear distinction. In episode 3 of this podcast, we talked about the midlife funk, that heavy, suffocating feeling that comes from overload and capacity limits and having way too much on your plate. In episode 9, we talked about broken morning routines and energy leaks. Today is different. Today isn't about having too much on your plate. Today is about having the exact plate you asked for and realising it suddenly tastes like cardboard. So why does this happen? Why do things that used to light us up start feeling so incredibly dull? The answer isn't a flaw in your character. It's basic neuroscience, a phenomenon called habituation. Habituation is your built-in biological tendency to stop responding to anything that stays constant. Think about it this way. When you walk into a room with a ticking clock, at first the sound is crisp and obvious. But after 10 minutes, your mind completely edits the ticking out. You don't hear it anymore. Why? Because your brain's primary job is energy conservation and survival. Neurons fire wildly in response to new information, a new threat, a new environment, a new thrill. But once your system registers that something is constant and safe, it dims the volume control. It says, "We know this room won't harm us. Turn off the conscious attention and save battery power." It's the exact same default wiring that allows you to walk past your partner's crumpled jocks on the bedroom floor for 3 days without starting a civil war. Your brain simply tunes out what stays constant to keep you sane. But here's the kicker. It doesn't just do this with noise or messy laundry. It does it with the good stuff too. There's a cognitive neuroscientist, Dr. Tali Sharot, she's at UCL and MIT, who spent years studying exactly this. One of the standouts in her research was to do with vacations. Her team found that on a standard holiday, vacation happiness peaks at hour 43, then declines daily. Think about that, hour 43. That's less than 2 full days in. After hour 43, even though you're still sitting on the same tropical beach, eating the same delicious food, with no emails to answer, your subjective happiness rating begins a steady daily decline. Nothing got worse. The beach didn't get uglier. You simply got used to it. The novelty wore off, and your sensory volume got turned back down to baseline. There's also a well-documented dip in happiness across the lifespan that bottoms out, on average, in midlife. Not because midlife is terrible, largely because it's the longest stretch of unbroken sameness most of us ever experience. By the time you reach your 40s and 50s, you've likely been on the same career track, or in the same house, or the same relationship, or same suburb for years. You've built stability. But stability is the ultimate breeding ground for numbing out. You look around your objectively good life and your mind goes, "Got it. Same house, same coffee mug, same conversation, same commute. Battery saver mode activated." And this isn't unique to you. It happens to literally everyone. Rich or poor, married or single, whether your life is messy or picture perfect. So here's the reframe you need today. You're not ungrateful. Your brain is just doing what brains are wired to do with sameness. When even the good stuff leaves you feeling lackluster, 2 things happen next. You trap yourself in guilt, and if you aren't careful, you risk blowing up a life you actually love just to feel alive again. Let's sit with this for a minute, because this is where the real emotional work lives. When this numbing out happens in a tough situation, like a terrible job, we call it survival mechanism. But when it happens in a good life, we call it shame. This specific flavour of midlife guilt is sneakier than almost any other because there's no external villain to point at. There's no bad boss to blame. There's no obvious crisis. It's just you standing in your kitchen, wondering why you can't force yourself to feel ecstatic about the life you worked 20 years to build. And because we live in a culture that preaches relentless gratitude, we tell ourselves, I just need to write in my gratitude journal more. I need to list 10 things I'm thankful for before I close my eyes at night. Listen to me. Gratitude is a wonderful practice, but habituation doesn't give a fig for your gratitude journal. Take lottery winners, for example. Researchers have found that people habituate to a windfall of millions almost as fast as the rest of us adjust to a new sofa. You cannot intellectualize your way out of a neurochemical response. Trying to force yourself to feel grateful for something your head has tuned out is like trying to force your eyes to see a colour that isn't in the room. You can't force a feeling that isn't there. You just end up feeling exhausted and phony. And here's where the real risk lies in midlife. When a high-performing, capable woman feels mediocre for, say, 6 months straight, and she doesn't understand the biological why behind it, she reaches a dangerous conclusion. She thinks, my life is broken. She mistakes that detached feeling for failure. And this is the moment where women blow up perfectly good lives. They quit the job that actually suited them. They leave the partner who loves them. They sell the house, tear down the infrastructure, or make a chaotic, drastic move. Not because the original thing was bad, but because they were desperate to feel a surge of neurochemical novelty again. They wanted to feel alive, and blowing things up was the only tool they thought they had. I call this the midlife dynamite move, for all the wrong reasons. And while I am all for bold pivots and unapologetic reinvention when a life truly no longer fits, we talk about that all the time on this show. You do not need to dynamite a good foundation just because the old grey matter got used to the wallpaper. You don't have to destroy what you've built to get what you want. You don't need a total overhaul. You just need to learn how to dishabituate. So, okay, how do we dishabituate? How do we wake our brains up, strip away the grayscale and put more yay back into our day without tearing our lives apart? Science gives us 3 very distinct, highly practical levers. Lever 1, strategic micro breaks. If habituation is caused by unbroken sameness, the fastest way to break habituation is temporary absence. Stepping away from something good for a short, deliberate stretch measurably restores your capacity to actually feel the magic of it again when you return. Think about business travellers. You go away on a 3-day work trip, sleep in a sterile hotel room, eat overpriced room service, and when you walk back through your front door on Thursday night, what happens? You notice the smell of your home. You sink into your own mattress and think, thank goodness my bed is amazing. Your bed didn't magically get better while you were away. You simply unhabituated to it during those 72 hours. You see, you don't need a full-blown retreat to pull this lever. You can take micro breaks from good things. Sleep in the guest room for 2 nights. Go away for a solo weekend. Fast from your favourite daily luxury for 4 days. Give your mind the gift of temporary contrast so it can remember what it missed. Lever number 2, tiny environmental novelty. Here's a wild piece of data from cognitive research. Changing your physical location, even in the smallest way, creates an immediate spike in neural alertness and creative output. Dr. Shiro notes that if you simply move your laptop from your usual desk to a different room or work from a different chair, your brain experiences a boost in focus and sensory engagement. The catch? That specific spike only lasts about 6 minutes before the meh creeps back in. 6 minutes. That tells us something profound. Novelty isn't a permanent state you achieve. It's a series of small, repeatable jolts you inject into your routine. And it's so easy to do. And lever 3, experiences over possessions. Possessions lose their shine fast. You buy the new handbag, the new car, or the new throw pillows. For about 48 hours, you look at them and feel a thrill. By day 4, they're just background scenery. By week 2, the dog is sleeping on them and you've forgotten why you spent $80. Experiences, on the other hand, resist habituation because they're dynamic, time-bound, and memory-encoded. A shared trip, an hilarious night out, learning a new skill, or trying something completely out of character stays vibrant in your neural mapping. You can replay a great experience 3 years later and still get a joy hit and vitality boost from it. Now let's bring this down to your actual week. In episode 9, I gave you a tool called the minimum viable anchor. That tool was all about consistency, establishing one non-negotiable anchor to ground your morning routine. Today we're introducing the exact opposite move. This is my signature framework for dishabituation, and it's called the Novelty Minute. Where anchors create stability, the Novelty Minute creates deliberate micro-disruption. Here's the rule of the Novelty Minute. Once a week, you deliberately change one small, specific detail about something in your life that is already going fine. Not because it's broken or you need to fix it, but because sameness is quietly dulling it. What does a Novelty Minute look like in real life? It's driving home from work using a completely different route, looking at streets or landmarks you've never paid attention to. It's sitting in a different chair at the dinner table tonight. It's ordering a coffee you've never tried from a cafe 2 blocks further down. It's putting on music while you cook dinner instead of listening to the news. It's taking your Sunday morning cuppa out onto the front doorstep instead of sitting at the breakfast bar. These actions sound ridiculously simple, almost trivial. But the fact is, they're precise interventions. They force your brain out of battery saver mode. They break the hypnotic spell of autopilot living. They tell your nervous system, hey, look around, we're awake, we're paying attention, and we're here. You don't need to rebuild your whole existence to put more yay back in your day. You just need to interrupt the slow fade with micro moments of intentional disruption. Which brings us to your prime power move for this week. I want you to pick one good thing in your life that you suspect you've stopped truly noticing. Maybe it's your morning coffee, maybe it's the garden outside your window, maybe it's your partner or your drive to work, or the quiet house at 8 p.m. This week, I want you to execute one Novelty Minute around that exact thing. Change the mug, change the seat, change the timing. Not to overhaul your life, but to jolt your attention back online. Not to fix it, but to feel it again. Small enough to actually do, targeted enough to work. And as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this permission slip. If you catch yourself standing in your kitchen this week, looking at an objectively decent life and feeling flat, stop the guilt spiral dead in its tracks. Remind yourself, flat doesn't mean ungrateful, and it definitely doesn't mean your life is a failure. Flat just means human. Your brain habituated, that's all. The vibrancy hasn't vanished, nothing faded. Your default wiring just turned the volume down on it. This week, turn it back up. Midlife isn't a crisis, my friend. It's your comeback. Now go put a Novelty Minute into play and start showing up for the life that's already waiting for you. I'm Melissa Davis. Hit subscribe, share this episode with a friend who needs to hear it, and I'll see you next week on Hello Prime Life.